Welcome to Vivid Verses. If our words resonate with you, please subscribe, tap the like, and share your thoughts and your feelings in the comments. Now let's begin. To understand why I ended a serious 6-month cohabitation and a 2-year relationship over a piece of brass, you have to understand the logistics of the unit itself. I bought the condo 3 years ago. It wasn't an emotional purchase. It was a strategic acquisition. I work in high-stakes project management for commercial infrastructure. My days are defined by noise, conflict, liability mitigation, and the constant friction of human error. I spend 10 to 12 hours a day fixing problems caused by people who didn't read the contract or ignored the blueprints. When I come home, the primary requirement is zero friction. I pay a premium for silence. I installed triple pane glass to kill the street noise. I bought the place because it has concrete subfloors that dampen the sound of the neighbors. My home is a controlled environment. It is the only place in my life where I control the variables. Ivy moved in 6 months ago. The transition was a calculated risk. We had been dating for 18 months. The data suggested we were compatible. She was organized, seemingly independent, and had her own career in marketing. The financials made sense. Splitting the utilities and her paying a below-market rent to me allowed her to save for her student loans while I paid down the principal on the mortgage faster. The friction point, the variable I hadn't properly accounted for, was Brenda. Ivy's mother is a chaotic element. She isn't malicious in the legal sense. She doesn't break things out of anger. She breaks things out of entitlement. She's one of those people who believes that familial proximity grants her clearance to bypass social protocols. She treats boundaries like suggestions. The first 3 months were a series of minor incursions. Brenda would call Ivy at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday and talk on speakerphone for an hour while I was trying to review blueprints. She would suggest rearranging my kitchen because my workflow didn't make sense to her. I addressed this. I sat Ivy down in the 4th month. I treated it like a performance review. I was clear. I like your mother, I said. But this apartment is my sanctuary. I need to decompress when I get home. She cannot just drop by. She cannot have a key. We need 24 hours notice before a visit. These are the operating rules. Ivy agreed. She didn't just nod. She verbally confirmed she understood. She said, "I get it. Mom's a lot. I'll handle her." That was the verbal contract. Last Sunday was the breach. Sunday is my reset day. No email, no calls, no social obligations. We were in the living room. I was reading a technical manual on HVAC retrofitting, dry stuff, but it focuses my mind. Ivy was on the couch, scrolling through Instagram. The environment was within acceptable parameters. Quiet, controlled. Then I heard the sound. When you own a property, you know the mechanical sounds of it. I know the hum of the refrigerator compressor. I know the settling creak of the floorboards in the hallway. And I know the specific metal-on-metal friction of the deadbolt tumbling. I froze. I checked the time. 2:15 p.m. I wasn't expecting a delivery. The building manager calls my cell before entering. The handle turned. The door opened. Brenda walked in. She was carrying 3 reusable grocery bags and wearing a bright floral coat. She looked like she was walking into her own foyer. She didn't knock. She didn't ring the bell. She just used a key, opened the door, and stepped into my private space. "Surprise," she announced. She was beaming. I found ribeyes on sale at the butcher, and I thought, why not treat the kids to a proper Sunday dinner? I didn't look at Brenda. I didn't look at the bags. I looked at Ivy. This is where the situation shifted from an annoyance to a fatal system error. If Ivy had looked shocked, if she had jumped up and said, "Mom, what are you doing here? You can't just walk in," we might have had a conversation. It would have been a security breach, but one caused by Brenda stealing a key or copying one illicitly without Ivy's knowledge. But Ivy didn't look shocked. She looked at me. She was watching my face. Her chin was tilted up slightly. Her eyes were hard. She was waiting. She knew. She had given Brenda the key. More than that, she had orchestrated this. I ran the analysis instantly. This was a stress test. Ivy had decided that my boundaries regarding her mother were unreasonable or cold. And since she couldn't win the argument with logic, she was using a force multiplier. She brought her mother into the room to leverage social pressure against me. It was a trap. If I reacted according to my actual emotions, if I told Brenda to leave, if I got angry, if I demanded the key back immediately, I would lose. The bad guy scenario. I yell. Brenda cries or acts offended. Ivy steps in as the mediator/victim. Aiden, she's just trying to be nice. She brought steak. Why are you so controlling? It's just a key. I become the villain. I look unstable. The narrative shifts from Ivy broke the rules to Aiden hates Ivy's mother. The doormat scenario. I smile. I say, oh, thanks, Brenda. We eat the steak. Result. The boundary is deleted. I have signaled that my rules are flexible if enough social pressure is applied. Brenda keeps the key. The pop-ins become weekly. My sanctuary becomes a public thoroughfare. Ivy was daring me to make a scene. She wanted the emotional discharge. She wanted the fight so we could have the make-up sex and compromise on her mother having access. I don't negotiate with terrorists, and I don't negotiate with partners who ambush me in my own home. I stood up. I moved deliberately. I placed the manual on the coffee table, lining the edge up with the wood grain. I uncrossed my legs and rose to my full height. Hello, Brenda, I said. My voice was flat. No anger, no warmth, just data transmission. That is very generous of you. I saw Ivy's eyes flicker. She was confused. She had braced for impact, and I hadn't hit her. She didn't know how to process the lack of conflict. I turned to Ivy. I looked her dead in the eye. I didn't grimace. I'm going to the gym, I said. I'll be back in 2 hours. Please ensure I have my key back when I return. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't look back at Brenda to see her reaction. I walked past them into the hallway, grabbed my gym bag, and put on my boots. Aiden, Ivy said. There was a tremor of uncertainty in her voice. She had expected a fight, not an exit. I opened the door and walked out. I closed it firmly. I waited for the latch to click. I walked down the 3 flights of stairs instead of taking the elevator. I needed the physical movement to burn off the initial spike of adrenaline. By the time I reached my car, my heart rate was back to 70. I drove to the gym. It's a warehouse-style place. Iron plates, concrete floors, no air conditioning. It smells like rust and sweat. It's honest. I loaded a bar for deadlifts. I needed heavy loads. The physical stress helps clarify the mental processes. Between sets, I sat on the bench and ran the simulation of the relationship. The key wasn't the issue. The key was a symbol of the issue. The issue was a fundamental lack of respect for the contract. When you live with someone, you're signing a contract. It involves finances, space, and behavior. I had been explicit about the terms regarding the apartment. Ivy had agreed to those terms. By giving Brenda the key, Ivy had done 2 things. Unilateral modification. She changed the security protocols of my home without my consent. Weaponized intimacy. She used her knowledge of my personality, that I dislike scenes, against me. She bet that I would suffer the intrusion rather than be rude to her mother. She was manipulating me. If she would do this for a Sunday dinner, what would she do when the stakes were higher? What about finances? If we had a joint account and I said no to a purchase, would she buy it anyway and dare me to return it? What about raising children? She had shown me her dispute resolution strategy: subvert, ambush, and guilt. I did 5 sets of deadlifts. Heavy. I stripped the bar. I moved to the squat rack. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger is a reaction to a loss of control. I had regained control, because I had made a decision. The relationship was a sunk cost. The time I had invested, 2 years, was gone. Trying to save, it would require me to accept a new reality where my boundaries were subject to her approval. That is an unacceptable ROI. I checked my watch. 1 hour and 45 minutes. I showered at the gym. I put on fresh clothes. I drove back to the apartment. I parked the car. I walked up the stairs. I paused at the door. I listened. Silence. I unlocked the door with my own key. The apartment smelled of seared meat and onions. It was a heavy, greasy smell that hung in the air. Brenda was gone. The kitchen was clean. The dishwasher was running. I could hear the hum. Ivy was sitting on the couch. The TV was off. She was sitting in the middle of the cushions, her arms crossed, her legs tucked under her. She was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. She had prepared a speech. I could see it in the tension of her jaw. She was ready to pivot the conversation. She was going to tell me that I was rude, that I embarrassed her, that I was weird for leaving. She wanted to drag me into the emotional mud so we could wrestle. She didn't understand that I had already left the arena. I walked into the living room. I didn't sit down. I stood on the opposite side of the coffee table. I held out my hand. Palm up. "Okay," I said. Ivy stared at me. She blinked. "You were incredibly rude to my mother, Aiden. She came all the way over here to cook for us, and you just walked out. Do you know how humiliating that was for me?" She was executing the script I had predicted. Deflect and accuse. "Ivy," I said. I didn't raise my voice. I kept it in the lower register, the voice I use when I'm telling a contractor that his concrete pour is rejected. "The key. It's on the counter," she snapped, waving a hand toward the kitchen. "God, you're such a drama queen. It's just the key. We can talk about it, but you don't have to be like this." I walked to the kitchen counter. There it was. My spare key. The one I kept in a lockbox in the utility closet. She must have taken it days ago, driven to a hardware store, and had a copy made for Brenda, then put the original back. Or maybe she just gave Brenda the spare. I picked it up. I put on my key ring. I put the keys in my pocket. Asset secured. I walked back to the living room. "So, are you done pouting?" she asked. She picked up the remote control, aiming it at the TV. "There's plenty of steak left." I put it in Tupperware. She thought she had one. She thought that 2 hours was my cooling off period and that my return signaled acceptance of a new status quo. She thought this won't happen again meant I promised not to be mad next time. "This won't happen again," I said. She smirked, not looking away from the TV. "Good. I'm glad you realize how ridiculous you were being." "No," I said. "It won't happen again because you and I are done." She froze. Her thumb hovered over the power button. She didn't turn the TV on. She turned her head slowly. "What?" "We're done," I said. "I want you to leave my house immediately." The silence in the room was absolute. The hum of the dishwasher seemed to get louder. "You're breaking up with me?" She let out a short, incredulous laugh. "Over a key? Aiden, are you serious? That is insane. You're throwing away 2 years because my mom came over to cook dinner. I'm ending the relationship because you violated a direct agreement," I said. "I told you Brenda could not have a key. You gave her one anyway. You did it to provoke a reaction. You wanted to see if you could override my rules." "I wanted my mother to feel welcome," she yelled, standing up now. The anger was flushing her cheeks. "Normal people have their parents over. Normal people share their lives. Normal people respect the person who pays the mortgage," I said. "I set a boundary. You crossed it. I don't live with people I can't trust." "I can't believe this," she said, pacing a tight circle. "You are a control freak. You're a sociopath. You'd rather be alone in your perfect, quiet little box than deal with real human connection." "Yes," I said. "In this context, yes." I checked my watch. It is 6 p.m. I'm going to make dinner in 30 minutes. I want it gone by then. You can take a bag. You can text me tomorrow to arrange a time to get your furniture. I will have the freight elevator reserved for you." She stopped pacing. She looked at me. She was looking for the crack. She was looking for the hesitation that would tell her this was a negotiation. She didn't find it. "I live here too," she said, her voice dropping to a hiss. "You can't just kick me out." "You are not on the lease," I corrected. "You're not on the deed. You have never paid a utility bill in your name. You transfer money to me monthly. Legally, you are a guest, and I am revoking your invitation." I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was stating the facts of the situation. I had prepared for this possibility when she moved in. I never put her name on the paperwork. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked. Her voice cracked. The anger was giving way to panic. "You can go to Brenda's," I said. "She has a key to her place." She stared at me for another 5 seconds. Then the tears started. Real tears, not the manipulative kind. She was realizing the scale of her miscalculation. She had bet the house on a bluff, and I had called it. "Aiden, please," she said. "I'm sorry." "Okay, I'm sorry. I'll get the key back from her. I won't do it again." "Don't do this." "The trust is gone, Ivy. It doesn't work without it." I walked to the door and opened it. I stood by the frame. She stood there for a long moment, sobbing quietly. When she realized I wasn't moving, she turned and ran into the bedroom. I heard the sounds of the drawers opening and slamming shut. I heard the zipper of a duffel bag. I stood by the door. I didn't go to comfort her. I didn't offer to help. That would send mixed signals. The break had to be clean. 10 minutes later, she came out. She was wearing her coat. She had a large gym bag over her shoulder. Her face was streaked with mascara. She stopped in the hallway. "You're going to regret this," she said. "You're going to be a lonely, miserable old man in this apartment." "I'll take the risk," I said. She walked out. I watched her walk down the hall toward the elevator. I didn't wait for the doors to open. I closed my door. I turned the deadbolt. Click. I engaged the secondary chain lock. Slide. I stood in the hallway for a moment. The apartment was silent. The smell of the steak was fading, the ventilation system doing its job. I walked into the kitchen. I opened the fridge. There was the Tupperware container of leftover ribeye. I took it out. I scraped the contents into the trash. I didn't want the reminder. I washed the container. I dried it. I put away. I went to my desk. I opened my laptop. I drafted an email to the building management. Subject: remove access. Body: please remove Ivy, last name, from the authorized access list effective immediately. If she requests a key or entry, deny it. She will be scheduling a move out of her furniture later this week. I will supervise that entry personally. I hit send. Then I sat down on the couch. I didn't turn on the TV. I sat in the quiet. Was I happy? No. Breakups are inefficient. They disrupt the schedule. I would have to reorganize the finances. I would have to deal with the logistics of her moving her couch and her dresser. I would have to listen to mutual friends tell me I was too harsh. But as I sat there, listening to the silence of the apartment, I felt the tension in my shoulders release. The chaotic variable was gone. The perimeter was secure. Ivy wanted a man who would fight with her. She wanted the drama. She wanted to test the fences to see if they would hold. She found out that my fences are electric, and I don't turn them off. I picked up my book on HVAC retrofitting. I found my page. I started reading. The logistics of the separation the following week. The next 3 days were a masterclass in social fallout. My phone blew up, naturally. Ivy had clearly spun the narrative. I got texts from her friends. "You kick her out on the street? You're a monster. Call her, she's a mess." I didn't reply to any of them. I blocked the numbers as they came in. I don't engage with third-party arbiters who don't have the full data set. Brenda even called me. I let it go to voicemail. She left a 3-minute message screaming about how I used her daughter and how I was disrespectful to elders. I saved the voicemail. Documentation is important in case they try to claim unlawful eviction or damages. On Tuesday, I received a text from Ivy. Ivy, I need to get my things. My bed, the dresser, my desk. Me. Wednesday at 6 p.m. I have reserved the service elevator. You have a 2-hour window. Ivy, I can't do Wednesday. I have yoga. Me. Wednesday at 6 p.m. is the only slot available this week. If you can't make it, we can look at next week, but I will charge a daily storage fee starting Friday. Ivy, you can't charge me storage. Me. Wednesday at 6 p.m. She showed up on Wednesday at 5:55 p.m. She brought her dad and a brother I had only met twice. Her dad is a decent guy, a retired plumber. He looked tired. He knew the score. He knew his wife. And he probably knew exactly what had happened without me having to say a word. He wouldn't look me in the eye. He just wanted to get the furniture and get out. The brother was different. He was younger, maybe 24. He came in with his chest puffed out. He wanted to be the defender. So you're the tough guy, huh? He said as he walked past me to the bedroom. I was leaning against the kitchen island, drinking water. I didn't move. The bed frame requires a hex key, I said. I left the tool on the mattress for you. I don't need your help, he sneered. I know. That's why I'm standing here. The move took 90 minutes. It was efficient. I watched them dismantle the life we had built. The bed we slept in, the desk where she worked. Ivy stood in the hallway the whole time. She refused to come into the main room. She was holding a coffee cup, staring at the floor. She looked smaller than I remembered. When the last box was on the dolly, her dad stopped by the door. Sorry about all this, Aiden, he mumbled. It happens, Bill, I said. Drive safe. The brother glared at me one last time, waiting for me to say something he could swing at. I just took a sip of water. He turned and left. Ivy was the last one. She lingered in the doorway. She looked at the empty spot where her desk had been. You really don't care, do you? She said softly. I care about reliability, I said. I care about my word. I told you what would happen. You're cold, she said. I'm consistent, I replied. Goodbye, Aiden. Goodbye, Ivy. She closed the door. I locked it. I walked through the apartment. It was emptier now. The bedroom echoed slightly without the second dresser and the rug she had brought. There were indentations in the carpet where her desk had been. I would need to steam, clean the floors. I would need to buy a new rug. I took a beer out of the fridge and walked to the window. I looked down at the street. I saw the moving truck pulling away. I saw Ivy getting into the passenger seat of her dad's truck. I felt a momentary pang, a biological spike of cortisol, the brain processing the separation from a mate. It's natural. Evolution wires us to seek connection. But then I looked around the room. My books were stacked exactly how I left them. The air was quiet. No one was going to ambush me. No one was going to demand I perform emotions I didn't feel. No one was going to bring chaos into my system. I took a drink of the beer. The system was restored. The losses were acceptable. I went to my desk, opened my laptop, and started looking for a new rug. Something gray. Something durable. Life is just logistics. If you manage the inputs, the outputs take care of themselves. I had managed the input. I slept like a baby that night. Silence is expensive, but it's worth every penny. Thank you for listening. That brings today's story to a close. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. See you next time.